Today I'm going to tell you what my top 5 classic Necron units are. It's coming right up.
Necrons!
Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. Right, today we are going to run over my top 5 classic Necron units. These are models which you can no longer purchase from Games Workshop. This should be fun. Before we start though, if you want to keep up to date with the Wonders of Warhammer 40k, then please subscribe and hit the bell button to turn on notifications so you don't miss an upload. Okay, so I've previously posted my top 5 ugliest Necron units and most epic Necron units. Making those lists was really tough. However, for this video, my top 5 classic units, I have to say it was even tougher. So much so that before we start with my top 5 list, I'm going to do some honourable mentions. Okay, so first I want to mention the original, the classic Necron Warrior. Actually a very cool model, but it didn't quite make it in my top 5 list. But this was the first Necron model, and how cool is it? I also want to mention the Necron Immortal, the very first Immortals that came out. Those models were pretty big, even bigger than the current Immortals that we have. A classic Necron unit. They just didn't make it into my top 5 list. Now I also want to mention the old HQs. Now I am a big fan of classic old miniatures, and these HQs are pretty characterful. However, they just didn't quite make it into my top 5 list. But just to prove how much I like them, here is a conversion that I did of him on a tomb spider. And I want to talk about the tomb spider because those old tomb spiders were also very cool models. And again, they just didn't quite make it into my top 5 list. So, with the honourable mentions done, now we're going to find out what unit is in 5th place of my top 5 most classic Necron units. Right, in 5th place we've got the old Destroyer model. This was from the original Necron Raider releases. How cool does this model look? I love this model, and to be fair, I think this is why the Tomb Blades made it into my top 5 ugliest models, because I think this model here really should have been a Tomb Blade. Now I like to call this model the Destroyer Blade because I think it makes great stand-ins for Tomb Blades and also can be used as destroyers. I love how the Necron is integrated into the vehicle along with the gun. I think it looks super cool and I really love using these on the table. Okay, so in 4th place is the Necron Immortal from the 3rd edition codex. I love these models. Very, very cool. I am a big fan of the green rods, so to have 2 green rods in that weapon for me was just awesome. I also love the colour scheme of these. The Immortals were supposed to be a bit older and they were supposed to be more weathered, and I painted mine like that also. A very cool model. I distinguished my units by painting the wire on the back there in a different colour, so one had green, one had silver. Now the original Immortal was actually bigger than these Immortals. Indeed, the old Warriors were bigger than the current Warriors, which is why I think the old Warriors make great Immortals with Tesla. That's how I use those old Warrior models. But these old metal Immortals are definitely a classic unit. Right, in 3rd place we've got the Necron Pariah, a unit which is just no longer around. These guys are awesome. These were the new breed of Necrons in the 3rd edition codex, and I was hoping when a new codex came out that these guys would make it into the troops slot. However, instead of that they were discontinued, but we did have Lichguard and Praetorians filling the same roles as these guys. I'd imagine they just didn't want to recast these in Finecast. Yes, I am going to mention Finecast, because if they did that, of course, they would be incredibly fragile. So the unit was discontinued and they made the new multi-kit instead. But How cool do these look? Look at those weapons, a whole unit of war scythes. Back in those days, that was quite rare, and war scythes were really good in those days. No invulnerable saves allowed against a war scythe. Not only that, the war scythe had a built-in Gauss blaster. Very cool indeed. It's such a shame that Games Workshop deleted this unit from the Necron force, and in my eyes is one of the top classic Necron units. Okay, so in second place I've chosen the Wraiths. I really like this unit. It's very different from the other models that we have, and I like the way they're quite skinny. They have a 3+ invulnerable save. They're supposed to be phasing in and out, and I think that skinny body indicates how difficult it must be to actually shoot these guys.
Necrons!
I really like the slender, sleek design of these compared to the new Wraiths. The new Wraith models do look pretty awesome, however I prefer these as a model, and as a classic unit nearly made it into top spot. However, they were pipped at the post, so in top place my most favourite classic unit is the classic Necron flayed ones. These models are super cool. I have 60 of them all together. They are made of metal, and I think they look much better than the new fine cast sculpts. They're basically more dynamic Necron warriors with claws rather than guns, and they wear the flayed skin of their enemy to try and blend in. Super cool. These models here I painted a long time ago, before the blood effect paint that was available, so I just used red paint. However, I didn't mix my units up, so I had one with orc skin, where you can see I've used the blood effects there to good use, and then I did another unit with tau skin, and I changed the colour of the blood effects just to give me a bit of variation, so when I have my units I can work out which flayed one unit is which. Super cool models, I love them. However, what do you think? What are your top 5 classic Necron units? Let me know in the comments box below, and if you're not subscribed yet, start now. Hit the Edic Beer icon, and if you want to see my other top 5 Necron unit videos, then check out those 2 videos just there. Beam me up!